Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we are going to be reviewing the Glamlite Ice Cream Dream palette. These are all the shades just as an overview. Also, this is my very first time trying Glamlite. I just saw this palette on TikTok and I felt like I needed to have it. If you've been watching my videos and maybe forgot to subscribe, make sure to click the button and notification bell. I've been posting videos weekly and I cover beauty, lifestyle, and DIY. So welcome to the community. If you want to learn more about the Glamlite Ice Cream Dream palette, then keep watching. If you go on Glamlite's website, you'll notice the whole brand is food related. You have like a pizza palette, donut palette, the ice cream dream, and it is on purpose. The founder, Giselle Hernandez, struggled with insecurities about her weight, and just wanted to create a brand that felt inclusive to all and also create a positive relationship with food. I think it's such a fun and inspiring reason to create a food-related makeup brand. It is not just a gimmick, it's kind of the basis of their whole brand, and I am here for it. Now, the palette in itself, when you receive it, comes in this giant box. I do think this is a little excessive. This is cardboard, obviously. I was very confused when I received this. I thought I had ordered play makeup instead, but it comes in this giant ice cream truck. The palette itself looks like this. It's a beautiful ice cream cone with sprinkles in it. I think it's such a fun packaging and also practical because it's not really wasting any space. You have all of the shades necessary. It's pretty compact for what you're getting here. It has a giant mirror, which is not something you see often in palettes like this. Feels very sturdy. It retails for $45, so I do think you get really good value for the price. So now we're gonna get into the actual shades. I will be doing a finger swatch as well as a brush swatch so you guys can see realistically how it's going to look. And I'm going to be priming the surface before applying these for swatches. That is what I normally do on my eyes anyway. The palette has 16 mattes and 14 shimmers, and some of the shimmers perform kind of like glitter, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But you do get a good variety of shades and a decent amount of neutrals. I do think there are a few key blending shades missing in this palette, but overall you got quite a few shades to play with. This palette leans more towards the pastel side, so there aren't very many deeper shades to play with aside from those first two rows. Starting off with the actual shades, the first one we have is Chocolate. When you look at it in the palette, it does look more brown tone, but when you apply it on the skin, it's more like a wine color. This shade is super creamy and easy to blend, and it does pack a punch. This is the deepest shade in the palette. Next up, we have Black Cherry. Now, this shade is a little deceiving because in the palette, it looks like a very deep magenta, but on the skin it translates more like a bright magenta shade. It is a little more forgiving than Chocolate, so you can build up the shade easily and it's not going to overpower the look. Next up, we have Red Velvet. This is one of my favorite mattes in the palette. It is a true coral shade. It does translate more orange on camera, but it looks like a true coral. It's not too bright, not too light, and it blends really smoothly. Now we have the shade Pumpkin. It looks exactly like it is named. It is a light pumpkin color. You can build it up. All of these shades are great for beginners in color because you have that flexibility of building up the shades and you don't get any patchiness with them. Now, French Vanilla. This is a very confusing shade. As you can see, that brush swatch is just horrible, but I do think it is meant to be used with your finger. It has a flaky texture, and when you fully blend out the shade, you don't really get that white pigment. It is more like a full-on iridescence, like a glittery shade. Very beautiful, but I do think it's meant to be used over the top of other shades or even as body glitter. Now onto Butter Pecan. This is a burnt orange color, deeper than the pumpkin shade, very creamy, easy to blend, and it is a flat matte. Now onto Salted Caramel. This is another one that is kind of flaky, but it looks very foiled and beautiful. The shade is more like a taupe. A lot of the shimmers in this palette are very soft and will apply better with your fingers. Moving on to Raspberry. This shade does translate lighter on the skin than it does look in the palette. It is a flat matte, very creamy, easy to blend. Next up is Rocky Road. This is like an orangey shimmer shade and it has gold flecks throughout. Again, applies better with your fingers. Next is Pecan Praline. This is such a beautiful shade. It looks rose gold in real life. Obviously, it's not translating on camera, and it has gold and pink flecks throughout the shade. Now we have Taro. This shade is like an iridescent purple. It has a blue flecks throughout the shade. Now we have Gelato. This is a beautiful cool tone purple with flecks of blue and silver glitter throughout. I feel like these shades are so unique because you can tell the differences in the little tiny flecks of glitter throughout the shades, and this one is very foiled and pigmented. Now we have Cookie Dough. Honestly, this is a lighter shade of the salted caramel that we swatched earlier. It's very similar. It has a similar texture, kind of flaky and foiled. It is not as pigmented as you can see. I'm comparing it here, but both very reflective and beautiful. It's just one is darker and one is lighter. Now on to the shade Lemon. This is exactly like it is named. It is like a shimmery lemon shade. I don't really see any particular flecks of glitter in it. It is just a metallic lemon shade. Next up we have Peanut Butter. This is a creamy matte warm brown. This one is great as a transition or blending shade. And my swatches are horrible. I apologize. Now we have Strawberry. It is like a Barbie pink but metallic. It has flecks of a slightly darker pink throughout, and it's just a really fun shade. Now we have Blueberry Cheesecake. This is like an iridescent pinky purple shade. It's not flaky, it is smooth, and the flecks of glitter throughout are very finely milled, so it just looks metallic. And now Birthday Cake. This is my favorite shade in the palette. It is so beautiful. It is kind of like an aqua color with gold flecks throughout. Looks very foiled. It is not flaky whatsoever, very soft. And just look at the differences in the swatches. You do get that variation. If you want a darker look, you can use your fingers, or if not, just use a brush. Next up we have Cotton Candy. This is just a cool toned baby blue. It has tiny flecks of silver throughout the shade. It is soft, not flaky whatsoever, applies really great with a brush or with your finger. There's not a lot of color variation in one versus the other. Now we have Strawberry Cheesecake. This shade is not translating on camera, but it's like a rose gold. It has flecks of gold and pink shimmers throughout, which makes it look different in low light versus harsh light. Now we have Mochi. This is the most disappointing shade that I feel like in the palette. It's not chalky, but as you can see, it's kind of weak sauce. Moving on to Honey Lavender. This is a lavender matte shade, and it looks drastically different applied with a brush than with your finger. We are ranging into the pastel shades, so I will say none of these are chalky, which is super surprising to me, and they blend it really well on the skin. Mint Chocolate. It is a flat mint shade. Looks great with a brush or with your finger. I think if you want it to look darker, just use your finger. These apply great on the skin, super blendable. Now on to Rainbow Sherbert. This is a very unique shade. It's like a hot pink, and it has blue, pink, and rose gold shimmers throughout the color. The texture of the shadow is a little drier than the rest of the shades in this palette, but it looks great with a brush or with your finger. Orange Cream. This is a mix of pink and orange. It is a flat matte shade. I feel like it's a really good shade as a transition color or just a blending color. Moving on to Bubblegum. This is just a flat matte bubblegum pink shade. It is just slightly darker than Mochi and a lot more pigmented applied with a brush. Now onto Pistachio. This is a flat matte shade. There is variation in using it with a brush or with your finger. It looks more pistachio with your finger and more lime green applied with a brush. Now Cookie Monster. This is the Periwinkle shade. Very pretty, creamy. There's just a big difference when you apply it with the brush in terms of pigmentation, and it is a flat matte shade. Next up is Green Tea. This is a flat matte teal shade. It is absolutely not as dark on your skin as it is in the palette. You can kind of build up the shade. It is still very blendable. Here I'm just comparing it to Mint Chocolate so you guys can see the difference. One is more minty, the other more teal, but there's a big difference in terms of pigmentation. And the last one is Mango. This is just a flat matte yellow shade. It is creamy and blendable, but honestly the color is a little weak sauce for me. I think maybe with a white base it would really make this color pop. So my overall thoughts on this palette, I think it's amazing. I'm really impressed with this brand overall and with the quality of these shades. I had honestly never come across a palette with pastels that were not chalky, so pleasantly surprised. I think it's a great palette to have, especially if you're a beginner dabbling in color. It's very user friendly and you get a good variety of shimmer and matte shades. That is it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, make sure to share and leave a comment down below if you think this is a palette that you would purchase for yourself. I normally don't go for rainbow palettes, but this does have a few neutrals thrown in there, so it kind of throws you off. And I was actually really pleasantly surprised with everything about it. So I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.